everyone, coming to you again with another Music Talk Tuesday, being my last one actually for quite some time till December. In case you haven't watched the previous video that I made about Planet of the Apes, I discussed a little bit that I will be ending and closing YouTube for a while until towards the ending of December, around that time, because around that time is when I have vacation, and that's when I can start making videos again. I've got school coming up, so I kind of don't want to have that sort of pressure on me to make videos every day, because it does take a lot of time for me to do research, and then it takes me a lot of time to sit and watch a movie or look at music and such. So I figured that it's probably best if I just quit making videos for some time, and then I'll come back in December when I have break and when I have more time to do that kind of thing. So yeah, this will be my last Music Talk Tuesday for a while, so just to make sure that people are aware in case they didn't watch the first video of this week where I talked about Planet of the Apes. But today, as you can see from the title, we're going to talk about songs that are based on places or have to do with places. And I thought that was rather an interesting concept to sort of end this kind of summer with, because I really think places are really cool. I love traveling. I'm a big traveler fan. I really like to go outside and do things. I'm very active on that front. If I had like unlimited money, I would just go travel for the rest of my life. That's what I would do. So yeah, so I wanted to talk briefly a little bit about some of the songs that are based on places, or songs that have places in their names, and basically just address a little bit to you the ones that stood out to me and the ones I thoroughly enjoy. The first one I wanted to address is California Dreamin' by the Mamas and Papas. Yes, fairly popular song, probably played tons and tons of times on the radio, even still today. And this song is kind of interesting in how not only how the lyrics are, which are fairly straightforward and simple, but also in the way the vocalists sing. In particular, this song sort of deals with the idea of someone sort of, wishing they could be in California. That's the whole kind of concept of California dreaming. It's like, I'm wishing I was there. And this is basically emphasized when in the song it says, I'd be safe and warm if I was in LA. California dreaming on such a winter's day. It's sort of trying to highlight this concept of how this person feels sort of isolated in this kind of wintry climate, and they think that they would be much more, I guess, included and feel more, I guess, at home maybe by being in California, where it's not so wintry and it doesn't have a lot of storms and such, where there's tons of sunshine and such, and clear skies. So that's really kind of what the song is trying to emphasize, is this point of California dreaming, like, if only I could go, also with the interesting thing though is the way that they sing this song. It kind of sounds like the vocalists are trying to hammer down this idea of them feeling sort of miserable. They don't sound like the most happy people. They do kind of sound a little bit like, if I didn't tell her I could leave today, I could leave today. It sounds very like it doesn't sound so uplifting or happy or smiley. Even though it is done passionately, I still think there's this kind of misery to it. This whole idea of California dreaming, you know, the whole like, if only I could go, you know, I don't like it here. Because, I mean, basically the person or sort of narrator is kind of trying to emphasize how he's in a different place besides California and that he'd like to go to California. So that's kind of what you have to understand by California dreaming. It's about wanting to go there but not actually being there. I think it sort of highlights the kind of idea of maybe loneliness as well. I think this is emphasized through how the vocalists sing, and also by certain parts of the song. And I think for the most part it does seem to hammer down this kind of sort of misery type-ish feeling, like it's like California dreaming. It's almost like a dream, and it's not reality. With it ending like on such a winter's day, it kind of emphasizes the point of like, oh, I should maybe, because I think how it ends, like on such a winter's day, it kind of is saying like, you need to come back to reality and see like, yeah, I can dream, but I kind of know that that's maybe not a possibility for her. And I think it's emphasized also as well when the lyrics say, if I didn't tell her I could leave today, California dreaming on such a winter's day. Kind of like, I mean, I could go, but there's somehow something preventing me from doing so. And I think that's that whole idea of maybe reality setting in, and realizing that the places that maybe we do want to go to, we may never in our lifetime ever see, which is kind of depressing. And I think this song's trying to highlight kind of that depressing feeling of not being able to go to that one place that you've always wanted to go to. So I think that's really what this song is trying to speak to you, and trying to say to you and try to imply to the audience. Now the next one I wanted to briefly discuss was a song called Ventura Highway by America. This is, I think, a somewhat 1970s band, and basically his kind of whole spiel on this, one of the members, the spiel on making kind of this song is that basically the guy's name is Dewey Bunnell, and basically he said this is like how he was coming up with the whole idea of this song. And he said, it was 1963 when I was in 7th grade and we got a flat tire and were stranded on the side of the road, and I was staring at this highway sign. It said Ventura on it, and it just stuck with me. It was a sunny day and the ocean there, all of it. I think that's a fairly interesting story because I really identify with Ventura because I've grown up around that area, and it's just so cool to actually go on the Ventura Highway, but it's not called Ventura Highway. The highway around Ventura is called the 101 freeway or highway, and that's how people in California term it, and it just basically goes all through Ventura, and it's really brings back a lot of memories, really, for me when I listen to it, and to hear someone actually have a sort of similar kind of experience, even though I was never really stranded on the highway ever. I've just been through it. I think it's really cool. And it's interesting because some of the lyrics are kind of hard to interpret, and I kind of don't really understand what his reasoning was behind this, but basically, from what I could research, it said that the lyrics, season crying, notice bale, alligator lizards in the air. Basically, Bunnell said that it's the clouds, it's my brother and I standing there on the side of the road, looking at the shapes of clouds, while my dad changed the tire. I thought that was interesting how you can come up with seasons crying, notice bale, alligator lizards in the air, and then come up with, yeah, it means clouds, and it means that it's my brother and I standing there on the side of the road, looking at the shapes of clouds. I think that's funny. That's a funny way of putting a song. But basically, that's really all the song as far as lyrically is kind of trying to say. It has all of these little things in there that I think are supposed to sort of relate to this one experience that he had. But the way it sounds is, I think it sounds really cool with like the guitar and stuff. It does feel very, it does feel like it has like this sort of more 70s-ish vibe to it. It does feel a little bit like something that you would hear from that decade, and it's very it's very cool to have someone kind of sing through that experience, and you can really, I think, feel it through like the vocals as well as the instruments, how this whole experience is very relatable. And I think as me growing up in California and me really relating with that, I think that's just so cool. And my parents would play this song constantly when we would travel, and it was just such a nice song to hear. And I find it to be enjoyable to this day. And yeah, I definitely would recommend it for the most part. And yeah, I think it's more sort of reflecting on something more happy and pleasant, and not so misery-stricken like the first song that I was addressing. But basically, that's basically Ventura Highway by America. Pretty straightforward. Now the next one I wanted to talk about is another song that's based in California again, and it's called San Francisco / or in parentheses, Be Sure to Wear Flowers in Your Hair by Scott McKenzie. And basically this song was actually sort of a promotion song, and it was promoting the June 1967 Monterey Pop Festival. And yes, Monterey is a city in California, or town, well, yeah, kind of city. And it urged visitors to San Francisco to wear some flowers in your hair. And I think this is emphasized through the lyrics of when it goes, if you're going to San Francisco, be sure to wear flowers in your hair. If you come to San Francisco, summertime will be a lovin' there. And I think what this song is trying to do is sort of, I believe this song was written around like 1967. And I guess as we can see from 1967 in the early 60s, we kind of see how there is this sort of evolvement, I guess, in culture, in particular with San Francisco, because San Francisco is really has this kind of a time period culture, I think, not so much influenced as it was maybe back then, but I think that culture is sort of still there, and it was all going around like that San Francisco area, that Monterey, San Francisco area, and it's just really cool to hear a song about San Francisco, and hear about this kind of influence and impact San Francisco had on the particular cultural sort of evolution that was taking place around the later 1960s. In particular, I guess you could say with movements that are sort of, I guess you would classify them as maybe like countercultural, maybe like something like that, sort of the hippie movement that was kind of emphasized in San Francisco, and it was a big part of sort of generating these kinds of festivals and concerts where people would get together and they would hear like these performers come up on stage and perform, and this is what sort of the Monterey Pop Festival was intended to be, where they would have famous people perform, and kind of like emphasize this kind of thing, like similar to Woodstock, I think, and I guess you could say. The song is actually itself is fairly pleasant and very soft and flowy and very peaceful sounding. It's not like a, yeah, we're gonna go have a festival, woohoo song. It's like, it's just so relaxing and so soothing, and I find that to be funny. It's just very relaxed and delicate. And then when Scott sings the part of flowers in your hair, just the way he says that is just so delicate, and so for some reason it just kind of makes me smile. It kind of has this very alluring impact, and maybe that's why a lot of people found this song to be appealing, was that it was very alluring in the sense of being very very pleasant and not so forceful, but being very like, come on, come to San Francisco, you know, come to this area and let's all just, you know, relax. And you know, it's kind of being in that kind of inviting sort of sense, instead of being like, come down to San Francisco and da 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 da. It's not aggressive at all. It's just so flowy and delicate, and that's what I really like about the song. And the way Scott sings is fairly nice as well. So that's, I think, really all I can say about that song for the most part. The next song I briefly wanted to address was the song New York, New York by Frank Sinatra. Yes, we're going East Coast now. I'm done with West Coast. Going to the East, and yes, to New York. I've been to New York twice. Did not hear about the song until the second time that I went, and it's the most awesomest song to hear when you're in New York, or like maybe play in your head while you're in New York. Why? Because it just feels like New York. The whole jazz-like rhythm with Frank Sinatra's voice, and then just the whole kind of Broadway feel that the song gives really makes me think about New York. You know, the bright lights and the and the tall buildings, and you know, just the atmosphere. I think is very resonative in this song. And it places sort of New York as a way to make a new start and get away from a past life or sort of experience, which is kind of what Frank Sinatra emphasizes in the song when he says, "These little town blues are melting away. I'm gonna make a brand new start of it in old New York." And I could put other songs that are about New York, but for some reason this one, on top of Frank Sinatra's voice, I think really just highlights a lot of what I just think about when I think New York. And it just makes me feel happy. I just can walk the streets and I can literally feel like I'm in another world. It's just so cool, and I just really like the jazzy feel that it has to it. And how I just want to like put on a top hat and then start singing like I'm on Broadway or something. That's how I feel when I listen to the song. So it's very it's a very, I think, nice way of describing New York as a place of dreams and a place of sort of this kind of magic that is Broadway, and the magic that is the city itself, with all of the lights and all of the things to do and all of the splendor that it has to offer. And I think it just really gives me that sort of feeling. And the song in itself is fairly simple from what I've already explained. I mean, it's pretty much just highlighting New York as sort of like a dreams place. And I think of a lot of people. You could probably mention Alicia Keys too, who made a song called New York. And I would mention her, but for me, this kind of feel and atmosphere that this song gives me, I think, is more resonative than something by Alicia Keys, even though she is kind of really addressing sort of these same concepts of New York being a place where, there's nothing you can't do in New York, like she says. But I really like Frank Sinatra's New York, New York. It's just like, if there should be a national anthem to New York City, or just New York itself, I think Frank Sinatra's version would definitely be very, very cool in that respect. Now the next song that I'm going to briefly discuss is probably the longest song that I have to describe to you, because it is kind of complicated from the research that I came up with about it. But Sweet Home Alabama by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Yes, Sweet Home Alabama. We're going down south now. We went from like California, West Coast, to East Coast, to South. And Sweet Home Alabama, I think, is just one of those songs that Lynyrd Skynyrd wanted to put out there, because I think they're very passionate, I think, about their home in Alabama. But the song is also addressing something else in particular besides sort of Sweet Home Alabama. It was written sort of as an answer to two Neil Young songs. These songs included Southern Man and Alabama. And these songs dealt with themes of racism and slavery in the American South. Basically, the Lynyrd Skynyrd Southern group did not find Neil Diamond's songs to be, I guess, an accurate representation of the South, and I guess maybe its culture. So this is basically what Ronnie Van Zant said back concerning the Neil Young songs. He basically said, "We thought Neil was shooting all the ducks in order to kill one or two." So I think, from what you can tell from what I've said, is that I think Ronnie was trying to say, like, it's not all like how people make it out to be. This is not, you can't just classify something as it is. You just can't classify all of the South as in that way. And that's really what Ronnie's response was to Neil Young's sort of controversial songs. And basically, Sweet Home Alabama was sort of like a response to that. And there's even references into the song of Neil Young. In particular, when it says, "Well, I heard Mr. Young sing about her," and I think "her" is referring to the South. "Well, I heard old Neil put her down. Well, I hope Neil will remember, a Southern man don't need him around anyhow." I think the song is just so interesting to cover, because it's really, I think, trying to get this sort of response that's trying to open people's eyes maybe into maybe the criticisms that Neil's song brought up about the South. And in doing so, they do talk about their own place. Like, there are parts of the song where it says, like, "Sweet home Alabama, where skies are so blue." You know, it kind of has those references there as to about Alabama and how much it means to them. And I think this response to sort of Neil Young was just sort of to emphasize, is, you know, it's not how everybody makes it out to be. And there's also other controversial references within the song involving Alabama's governor, George Wallace, a noted supporter of segregation, and the Watergate scandal. In Birmingham, they love the governor. Oh, and I'm just saying this from the lyrics. Basically, what they refer to him in the song is that they say, "In Birmingham, they love the governor. Boo, boo, boo. Now we all did what we could do. Now Watergate does not bother me. Does your conscience bother you? Tell the truth." I think that's fairly interesting because I think these lyrics have been interpreted various different ways, and I think there's a lot of controversy as to what these lyrics actually intend to mean. But I think Lynyrd Skynyrd was trying to sort of generate this kind of pride within themselves to show that it's not all what everybody thinks it is. And I think there is an emphasis to kind of not support George Wallace's claims. In particular, when it says in the first line, "In Birmingham, they love the governor. Boo, boo, boo," sort of like to emphasize the whole, like, you know, we don't support this guy mentality. And although there have been people that have been speculated as to what this song means, the song is, I think, very controversial as to all what everything is trying to say. But I think for the most part it just shows kind of this kind of pride for the South. I think it's a very big symbol for the South. There's been a lot of use of this song. In particular, Forrest Gump, the movie, they do use Forrest Gump's character because he does live in Alabama, and they do have this song in it, "Sweet Home Alabama." So, I think it's just meant to be sort of a badge song. It's supposed to be a badge of sort of pride. But the lyrics, again, I think can be interpreted however you wish them to be. And the funny thing is that it's actually been reported that Neil Young and George Wallace, both whom they're both criticizing here, allegedly, supposedly, actually loved the song. And I think there was even a point where Lynyrd Skynyrd wanted to collaborate actually with, or some of the members wanted to actually collaborate with Neil Young, which is rather interesting. So I guess you could say you could just take this whole kind of controversy however you want to and interpret it however you wish. But I think for the most part, I don't think this song's intended to be mean-spirited or to be try to twist the truth. I think it's just trying to give this kind of a badge of pride. And I think that's really what Lynyrd Skynyrd was trying to do, because I think they do take a lot of pride in their heritage. So basically that's really all I can say about that one song in particular, but there is Alabama in there. It's just that there's all these other things that are sort of attached with Alabama that are the reasons why it kind of remained controversial, because of the sort of cultural the cultural misinterpretations that have gone around throughout the ages when it comes to the South, in particular, maybe to states like Alabama. So again, that's really all this song's trying to say. It's kind of, I think, trying to be sort of a badge, a badge sort of pride in a way for Alabama. So that's really all I can say about that song. The next song is actually, we're going to go across the ocean now, and we're going to go to London, and this song is called London Calling by The Clash. And this song is talking about various different things, so it's kind of difficult to sort of explain everything, but for the most part the lyrics reflect the concern felt by Strummer, which is one of the members of the band, about world events, with the reference to the nuclear error to the incident at the 3 Mile Island, which occurred earlier in 1979. Okay, and the 3 Mile Island is basically a nuclear plant that went wrong. I believe it was in Pennsylvania, from what my research had said, and it was in the United States. And I guess they took this issue very seriously because it was a very kind of devastating event. And then the line that says, "London is drowning and I live by the river," comes from concern that if the River Thames flooded, most of central London would drown, something that led to the construction of the Thames Barrier, which I thought to be interesting as well, as a song sort of inspiring this kind of change and sort of awareness. And then it's also addressing the concern for police brutality, and that's said when we ain't got no swing except for the ring of that truncheon thing, as the Metropolitan Police at the time had a truncheon as standard issued equipment. That's also, I think, interesting as well. And also the lines, "Now don't look at us, phony Beatlemania has bitten the dust," reflects the concern of the band over its situation after the punk rock boom in England in 1977 had ended. So this was made in 1979. But basically, the song in itself, when you listen to it, kind of does sound a little bit like a warning. It's kind of like trying to get your attention, and make you wake up and sort of be aware. I think that's really emphasized through the lead singer's voice, and I think it's interesting how it's addressing all of these concepts that are not really that could be reflected onto London, but aren't necessarily happening. Just something that may happen maybe in the future, which I found to be interesting because it seems like a lot of these songs are fairly different in the way that they describe a certain place. San Francisco is describing something that's here and now, and then London Calling sort of emphasizing maybe a possibility as to what could happen into the future. So for the most part, the song, even though it has a lot of concepts in it, is, I think, trying to just get people aware, and in doing so, trying to maybe emphasize the things that were maybe concerning England, in particular London, maybe during the time. So I think the band in itself is kind of trying to sort of wake people up and wake London up as to maybe possibilities of future events, and kind of trying to be a sort of maybe a push for change, and in a way in expressing in itself through the music, I think really emphasizes the band's point. So that's really what that whole song is trying to say, for the most part, from what I can tell. Now the last one I wanted to mention too is just now we've dropped ourselves off to London, but now we're going way down south, sort of southeast, I guess, if we're going from London, and we're gonna go to the Land Down Under, or Down Under by Men at Work. Yes, Men at Work. Land Down Under. You might be wondering, what does Land Down Under reference to? Australia. Where else? And basically, the song in itself is about an Australian traveler circling the globe, proud of his nationality and his interactions with people he meets on his travels who are interested in his home country. And this is where we get certain parts in the lyrics where you'll hear, like, do you come from a land down under? You know, these people are asking him, like, do you come from Australia? Land Down Under is sort of like a reference to Australia because it's in the southern region. So not only is it referencing sort of Australia and people having sort of a curiosity for Australia, and this was again made in the 1980s, and a lot of people in the 1980s, like, for some reason, I think it was Australia was like the big vacation spot in the 1980s. A lot of people went to Australia. My parents met in Australia. So yeah, it's really, I think, really cool. There's a lot of also slang within this song as well. Combi, it refers to the Volkswagen Type 2. You know, that big Volkswagen with like the it's almost, I want to say it is like a just a very big van, and also there's other references to like or slang that's where chunder means vomit, and basically these are just all like these kinds of cultural type-ish slangs that are kind of probably used within Australian conversation, maybe, depending, though I'm not sure if the cultural circumstances have changed, so nobody maybe use certain slang words anymore. Maybe possible, but I could be wrong. But for the most part, from what the song is trying to say, is that there is a lot of things that are maybe some things that maybe certain people like me did not understand at first, and then when I looked up, oh, this is what it means, it kind of gave a new aha moment. I kind of knew that they were slang, but I just didn't know what they meant. And there's also something else that I found interesting to sort of kind of make it even more relatable to Australia, and that's the particular song where the flute comes in. And the flute part of the song was based around the tune Kookaburra, which is a well-known Australian children's rhyme, which I also found to be very interesting. I think I've heard of Kookaburra before, but I forget how it goes. But for the most part, this kind of a flute, I really think, gives me a real big sense of Australia. Like, I start thinking of Australia every time the flute comes in, and I really do feel like I'm on an adventure. I mean, this feels really like an adventure type song, not by just the lyrics, but by the way it sounds. I think there was a lot of interesting parts to the song that really make it feel Australian, and I think all these parts with like the slang and the flute and these sort of references to Australia really give the song meaning. And the song is really well known and has been played constantly in Australia. I think they used it for the Men at Work performed it during the end of the closing ceremony in the Sydney Olympics, and I think everybody really likes this song, and people like to use this song a lot, to sort of, I think, show a little bit of some national pride. If if they come from Australia, and I think a lot of people really do like the song. And I think it's very resonative onto sort of this Australian kind of feel and atmosphere. And I think the song really tries to give you a sense of that. But for the most part, I think that's really all I can say about all these songs. They're all unique in their own special way. I think I covered at least a good kind of chunk of the globe as much as I could. But yeah, I think that's really all I can say about all of them. Any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. I'll put all of the links below. But yeah, this is going to be my last Music Talk Tuesday for a while, but it was nice to have this one be the last one for some time. But until next time, everybody.